Hey, I'm here on my own. Aaron was on, but little daughter is not feeling well at all, and I thought it might, we thought it might be better if he kind of left me in charge this week, so he could take care of his daughter. So that's where he is, and I'll probably mention that again. At the beginning of the show, we don't usually have a lot of folks on, so I will mention that again. And what am I wanting to do? Oh, yes, I wanted to load in just in case someone happens to comment. Well, I hope you're having a good day today on this Wednesday as far as what's going on. Uh, and I'm going to be stalling a little bit here because, again, Aaron and I had some plans. And so since he, at the last minute, we decided not to go that path, I haven't had quite a chance to prepare. But nevertheless, oh, I know one thing I can bring up. As far as our worship services are concerned, we're going to continue doing what we've been doing. God has been really blessing us with the weather. It's been great worshiping outside, and it's like a picnic in some ways, and it's great that we can do worship in a way that is safer than moving inside. We're going to have to wait and see how things go before we figure out exactly October. We have a COVID-19 team that has been talking about, what we might do in uh, in October. So, but we don't have that quite yet. I'm going to load in the our page. Uh, well, maybe. Uh, there we go. There we go. So if I see someone jump on, I can actually interact. So again, Aaron's not here today. He was going to be. He was actually on right before, and Addie is not feeling well at all. So it's best if he takes care of her. As far as our other announcement, we talked about this some last week with St. Paul, or rather St. Paul.life, the website that we're creating for our St. Paul community. I told Aaron one of the reasons why I wanted to do something like this was to get people off Facebook, just because Facebook can kind of be negative. One of the things that Aaron and I were going to talk about today was what's called depreciative abandonment. And that is something we can get stuck on, where all the negativity really gets, for lack of a better term, trapped in us and trapped in our souls in some ways. And so we end up I guess a little bit like Eeyore. If you remember Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore always had such a one cloudy disposition, I should say. And so no matter what was happening, he always saw the negative side. And I'm not talking about optimism and pessimism. That's something a little different. This is just the inability to see that God is still at work even in our most desperate and difficult situations, and the ability to place ourselves into God's hands, even though things are not necessarily the way that we like them to be. One of the things that helps with this is a deep sense of gratitude, giving thanks, and kind of like with our worship services. We've been going outside, and it's easy to bemoan the fact that we're not inside, and it's easy to bemoan the fact that we're not doing things the way that we used to do, or maybe even the way that we want to do them. But yet there are so many blessings being outside and seeing, God's handiwork, and even hearing the birds and everything. Someone was mentioning that a lot of times when you're outside at the church, you hear all these great big trucks going by. And they said, when we've been having worship, that hasn't been the case. There hasn't been distractions like that. And so, again, that's an appreciative abandonment. You're abandoning yourself to God, knowing that God is in charge. And he continues to bless you and bless me, even in those difficult situations. And when we can take a look at those things, it completely changes our outlook, and it also can change our health. And they've done studies, and the negative, or as I would say, the depreciative instead of appreciative, depreciative dispositions really can take a toll on our health and put us in places such as depletion, depression, dissatisfaction, despair. I mean, a whole bunch of bad D words. But yet, when we are able to be appreciative and grateful, it really does open us up. And one of the things that I notice is it takes a lot of energy to be depreciative. And so when you're appreciative, you're actually feeding a different energy source, so to speak, in your life, and uh, it brings joy where maybe joy wasn't before. Well, I hadn't without Aaron. Aaron and I were going to discuss that a little bit. I guess I discussed it a little bit on my own, but maybe next week we'll dive in a little bit deeper. But I encourage you to go to stpaul.life, set up an account. We've been having some discussions. One of the discussions, there's a group called That's Entertainment. And the conversation got started on a Netflix series called Cobra Kai. It's kind of an extension of the Karate Kid series back in the 80s, those movies. And it's kind of a TV type of thing. And so if you're watching Cobra Kai, come over to stpaul.life and dive into the conversation. I think there's some stuff that can be discussed in that show. And also there's other things. You can take courses. We've got the spiritual gifts inventory course on there that you can go through and actually take an inventory to help you discern what your spiritual gifts are. And hopefully once you know what they are, you can start cultivating and developing those in your life. Because as I said Sunday, if we are not, being faithful in our spiritual gifting, our community of faith doesn't have all the parts, so to speak. And we can just be wobbling down the road. If you heard the sermon Sunday, you'll get that reference. Well, if anyone has any comments, I'm probably close up early here unless someone has some comments that you want to bring up. And I do hope you guys are doing well. There's a lot I encourage you to pray for. We've got all of the fires out west and the wind with the fires. Of course, COVID is on our minds, schools going back in session, and, there's always controversy with that. And then with the election coming up, there's more controversy with that. And it just really seems to me that 2020 has been weighing on people an awful lot. That's why I wanted to talk a little bit about appreciative abandonment, meaning being able, it's not looking at the sunny side of life. It's realizing that what we see isn't always the full story. That God is still in this, that he is still with us. And if we can latch on to God during this time, that there might be some opportunities. There may be some blessings that we don't normally see. And so I encourage you to find those things. I'm not talking about finding a silver lining in the dark cloud. I'm not talking about, viewing things as things are not. I'm asking, or I'm encouraging you to look deeper, because God is always working behind the scenes. And if we are open to what God is doing, and we abandon ourselves into his hands, it changes our outlook, it changes our mindset, and you might be able to help someone else as well, because, maybe when you come in the room, you can bring that sense of gratitude with you, or maybe even that sense of joy with you, even though things are not going the way you necessarily want it to go. Well, you can pray for Aaron and Addie and Emily. Emily's started back to school, and so there's always challenges there. Pray for all the teachers, the administrators. Yeah, really pray for the administrators, because sometimes, they get a really bad rap because, I always think I know best. And if I were in charge, things would be different. But here's the thing. When you get in charge, things look different. Yeah. And what you thought would be easy before is not necessarily as easy as what it seems or what it looks like, when you're not in charge. And so we want to pray for them. There's a lot of competing priorities, and we will just pray that the right one actually comes to the forefront and we can get through this thing together, and still care for one another and still love one another. I keep telling folks, when you look at a lifespan of, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, we'll look back at this and it will seem like it won't seem as big. Well, maybe it will. I don't know. But I know many people have gone through some just horrendous years or 2 years or maybe a decade. But then when they look back on it, it just becomes one event rather than this long drawn out thing. And so I just encourage you to hold on to hope during these days, because hope, as Paul says in Romans, does not disappoint. And so actually in Romans, he talks about boasting in the hope that we have. And I think that's something that we as people of Jesus can do. We can boast in the hope that we have, and that hope is in Jesus. Because to live is Christ and to die is truly gain. Well, have a hope-filled day, and keep praying and keep looking to Jesus. And I will talk with you later. Blessings all.